Welcome to another episode of Thrive Like a Parent podcast. Today, I have one of our coaches with us, Dr. Maria Gonzalez, and this is a podcast that everyone has been asking for, and Maria and I have been wanting to do for a really long time. And that is the topic of having a spouse that travels. And I, in my lineage of being with Jonathan, have been in a partnership where Jonathan traveled a lot for work. And Maria has also been in a partnership where Lorenzo, her husband, travels a lot for work. But what's interesting is now it's kind of switched. You're the one traveling.
I was wondering if we were going to talk about that.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. It is. So now I kind of get both perspectives.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. You do have both perspectives. You have this perspective of being the one who stays at home and being the one who travels. You have traveled a lot in the last year, a lot.
Yeah. I'm so excited that we're doing this because this is probably one of the most popular hot topics that, our clients want to know. A lot of our clients have a partner who travels or they travel. And it is so incredibly dysregulating for both parties. But a lot of times we're supporting the partner who's not traveling. A lot of times we're supporting the partner who stays behind and their partner is the one who's traveling. The way my situation was a few years ago, and for many years, I want to say like maybe 4 years solidly, is my husband was traveling for work every week. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, every single week. He would fly out of town Tuesday morning really early, come back really late Thursday night. And it took a toll on him. It took a toll on me. It took a toll on the kids. It was a lot for our family. While he was trying to build his practice here, he was having to sort of supplement by, maintaining his client base out of state. And, I was like, what am I doing wrong? Why is this so hard? And slowly he transitioned. But I'm saying we probably did this for a solid 3 to 4 years of him going pretty much every week. And every week it was an epic roller coaster. There was, the storm after he left. And then by the time he was about to come back, we had kind of found our way. And then he came back. And then there was how do we fit back together? And then he was home for a while and then he would leave again. So then there was a storm and there was just this pattern of like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I figure this out? As the parent who's always here, why can't I figure out how to just keep, homeostasis in our home?
Jonathan didn't travel as long with me. It was based on his new job from here when we moved to Austin. And his travel was never structured like Lorenzo's in terms of a few days a week. We know that Lorenzo's gone, Jonathan would have to book meetings and he would have to go down to the border or he'd have to run into San Antonio. It was never consistent. We would never know when he was going and then he would have to pick up and go. Who knows how long he would have to be there for, a night, 2, 3. Just depends on how many cities he was hitting, and then he'd come back. And I agree with you. It was like the storm when he would first leave. I was like, oh shit, here we go again. I'm on my own, Yeah. And that transition period of, okay, this sucks. Like, here we go. And then you get into a groove and you're like, okay, everything's going my way. And then they step back in and there's a whole transition. And sometimes for many, there's resentment and anger and frustration and all of that combined when the partner walks back in. And then, like you're saying, it's especially for you. I remember you and Gretchen talking about it years ago. You were like, they come home just long enough to get back in the groove. Or there's some who feel like, they don't know how to reintegrate. It's like, put your bags down and let's go. Come on, get back in the swing. And they haven't been kicked in the butt and in the groove for so long. So it takes the whole household time to reintegrate. And by the time you reintegrate, it's like, all right, bye, see you later, see you again, And so the cycle just continues.
Yes, and the partner that's left behind is counting down the hours and sometimes the minutes for their partner to come home. And we want them to know exactly where to pick up. We want them to come ready. We resent them for being gone. We resent them for sleeping away from home and resting. But guess what? They're just as tired from the travel. And so you start this sort of tit for tat of, you should be rejuvenated because you haven't had to sleep listening to the sound machine or the camera or whatever it may be, And so we think we've had it a lot harder. They come home and they're like, I'm exhausted. And so it becomes this, well, who's more tired and whose job of staying home or leaving is more tiring. And then there's so much resentment that builds that nobody actually really understands each other and understands the ability or knows how to communicate what it is that we need or what's happening. And I know for me specifically, this is when our Wednesdays with Mimi was born. And Mimi is my mom. And so Wednesdays, she signed up to be grandma for the day. And so that was a way for her to take a little bit of the load off for me. And that was with me learning how to communicate my needs of what it is that I needed. I needed someone to help me break up this time. So she would pick up the kids from school on Wednesdays. They would stay with her Wednesday night, all the way, take them to school Thursday morning, and I would pick them up on Thursday. And so it just helped break up the monotony. And I didn't realize just how important that was for me, for that never-ending cycle of being the default parent who is at home, who has to do all the things all the time, that doesn't get the break in the cycle. So, but that came from me learning that I needed to request something different, that I needed something different to help support myself.
Yeah, I think there's so many different layers of this too, because we could think, oh, well, they're tired, they've been traveling, let me try and keep picking up the slack because they need a break because they just got home from the airport, or they're requesting that. And so then we get resentful, or there's other instances where we don't feel resentful because they've had a break, but we feel resentful because it's almost like now you're butting in and like you're trying to step in and you don't understand. Things were easier when you were gone to an extent, right? There is a storm period of, okay, I've got to readjust because I'm the only one here. And I often find that if there is someone here as a punching bag, if you will, we totally utilize them in terms of like, well, this is your fault. I'm pissed because you're laying on the couch right now and you could be doing the dishes, or you could be doing the laundry, or you could be taking out the trash without me asking, or whatever it is, right? But we get into this groove, and I felt it when Jonathan was gone, of I didn't feel resentment. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel frustration. I almost had this peace and calm. It was the oddest thing of, okay, I got this. I can do this. And we would get into such a rhythmic groove that when Jonathan would come back in the door, it was, no, you're messing with our vibe here. You're messing with our flow. And I think it's so important to say all of this because all of it can be true all at the same time. And absolutely all of it exists. Just because I was, no, you're messing with our flow and like our vibe. I still felt that frustration and anger and resentment of like, what are you doing? You just got a quiet hotel room for 2 nights. Like get up and help, right? Like, come on. Right. And we don't necessarily recognize that they're exhausted from the actual travel or from being on with their clients or whatever it is, right? So there's so many dimensions and layers that are really important to help everyone hear this, to know that it's really validating. You're not alone, and the feelings that you're feeling are extremely normal. And we've watched patterns for years, watching all of our clients feel the same exact way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you're so right about the routine. You get into this routine of the storm that happens when the partner leaves, and then you figure out momentum. You figure out how to do things. I'm get the kids in bed at 7:30. My partner is more of like 8:30 is fine. And so when I'm by myself with the kids, I get into the groove of my routine. I know my pace.
Our way.
My pace is very different from his pace. And so I get to parent the way that works for my pace. When he comes back home, we have to readjust to sort of an average pace. Sometimes it leans towards mine, sometimes it leans towards his, but we're giving and taking, and that's a lot harder. Yeah. And then we get adjusted to that because then he's home for the weekend. And then he up and leaves again. And then it's like, oh, okay, here we go. Now I got to ramp myself back up to get back into this solo parenting for these few days and have the kids recognize. And the kids are moving through a lot too. It's daddy's gone. When is daddy coming back? Every single week, daddy's gone. You know, so there's the adjustment for them too of like, now he's gone. Now he's back. It's great when he's back. You know, it's great when I have mom to myself. So there's just so much change that happens and dysregulation for all parties involved.
Mm-hmm. You know, I've explained like the rules of, you know, the whatever 3 rule that we always talk about, and I'm sure everyone might be tired of hearing it from me. I would love for you to explain kind of what those 3 days felt like, of almost what the first day feels like when he would leave, what the second day would feel like, and then the third, and then what it would feel like when he came back for the first 3 days.
I would say we were in about 3 to 4 years of constant 3-day transitions. So day 1 was chaos, dysregulation, losing my cool, kids misbehaving. We're just not in sync. We're not in a rhythm. Everything feels
just
hard.
Feeling out of sorts.
Out of sorts.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like phantom limb syndrome. There's something missing, but like you just can't put your finger on it, and your brain can't quite process it enough to like get it together. It just needs some time for that first day.
Yeah. And actually almost feeling like fight or flight the first day. Almost feeling like, woof, okay, like let's put the backpack on. Here we go. And then sort of that tension, that worry, the stress, whatever it is of, can I do this? Am I going to succeed? Am I good enough to do this by myself? Do I know what I'm doing by myself? Then by day 2, it starts to dissipate a little bit. Then by day 3, it's almost like you've gone for a run. And it hurts at the beginning. And then like once you're in a rhythm, you're like, okay, like I can maintain this. That's what it feels by day 3, just in time for him to come back again. And then we repeat the cycle. Except when he's back, there is more support because then there were the 2 of us together. But it is this constant transition of, you know, ebbing and flowing of doing it alone, doing it together, alone, together. And it is a constant cycle, or it was a constant cycle of a transition, a 3-day transition.
Yeah, I felt like that too. I felt like the first day very out of sorts. The second day I was okay. I almost felt like my feet were kind of being settled on the ground the second day. And then the third day I was all right, we're in the groove. This feels good, right? But then when Jonathan would come back, it was almost like, you're like encroaching, like back off. Like we don't need you here because we've got a rhythm going. And it's not that we didn't want him here. It's just, you're infringing upon like my vibe here. Like we've got this, you know, but we want them to step back in and be in sync with us and do all the things. So the first day was kind of uncomfortable. You just want to keep going and doing your flow, if you will, the first day that they come back. And then the second day is kind of that transition day of, all right, we're back and we're in the house. Got it. And then the third day is, okay, we're now readjusting. And I think that the person who is the one leaving, I mean, I would love for you to speak, Maria, because now you're the one leaving. Like, I would love for you to speak to like how that felt. Like you just did it, right? Like this past week. So like, how that feels for you when you leave and then come back.
Yeah, it's so funny to have the tables turned now. He's not traveling very often at all anymore. Maybe once a month, maybe max twice a month. It's very infrequent, whereas my travel has picked up quite a bit in this last year. And it's rattling. It's rattling to be pulled out of the routine. And yes, I will admit it's really nice to not have to think of all the things. It's nice to focus on the one thing that I'm doing while I'm on that trip. And I have full confidence being gone also, which is a really beautiful scenario. I have full confidence that he has it all together.
Yes.
But coming back is super, super hard because I was under the impression that I should just be able to hit the ground running because I'm used to doing this. I'm used to being the parent that's at home, that's doing everything. And I definitely discounted the toll that it takes on your body, on your mind, emotionally, how draining the travel can be. And so I'm finding myself having to go through the 3-day transition of coming back home. And that's not something I was ever aware of that he was going through. It was just thinking about myself being the one who was, I guess, the victim in the situation that was being left behind and having to deal with it. But now I know what it's like to be the one who's leaving. And my nervous system is going through just as hard of a time as his is being the one that's staying behind.
And it takes you a few days. Like you were just saying, the first day you were a little bit more snappy. The next day you took some naps and you're like, okay, I think this is going to take the edge off, and it didn't quite do it. And then you got a massage and you're like, that's what did it. Like calibrated you and you were like settled. And, you know, flying is not easy on our body. It cellularly dehydrates us, not just like regular dehydration, but cellularly it dehydrates us, as well as you were just saying the time change, right? So that's an often concept for individuals who are traveling of like, well, I was staying up later, or it was, you know, like it just puts you all off your system. It really does.
Yeah. And really the beautiful part of doing this work is the awareness that I have now of, you know, 3.5 years in to doing this work, being aware of coming back that day one and knowing, okay, it's not me, it's not them, this is day one. And so what do I need to do? I go back to the things that like I've done in the past that have felt so good for me, whether it is a nap, whether it's a workout, whether it's a massage, whatever it may be, to take care of myself so that I can then be present for others. And so, yes, those 3 days, you still have to go through them, but the awareness that I have now is knowing, okay, I know what this is. They're not misbehaving. I know I need to take care of myself so that I can transition back home.
Yeah, I think the awareness is the number one biggest thing, right? Because if you have no idea what's going on with your brain and your body, you're just annoyed. You're just pissed. You're just listening to the voices in your head rather than connecting the feeling to the body of your nervous system and recognizing, okay, wow, this is a dysregulated moment. Like this is a dysregulated day. Like my brain and body are out of whack. Like I'm out of sorts. Because of the awareness, you can have this grace with yourself, or grace with your partner, or grace even with the process of like the 3 days of, okay, I know this is going to be a little rocky, or I know this is going to be a little difficult the next 3 days, but like, okay, that's what the transition is. And every single time it is a pattern and we get through it and we'll get to the other side. Is it a fun pattern? No, but like we'll get to the other side. We'll do it, right? And so the awareness is, I think, number one, the most important, of like literally understanding, oh, that's why I'm XYZ. Like that's hands down number one. Number two is the resentment and anger piece, because I do believe we should touch on that in a sense of, what did you do to support your resentment and anger? Because I do think, Marie, I mean, I want your opinion too, but I think that this has a major breakdown in relationships, and it can really disconnect the partnership in a really harsh way that can last like for years and years.
Yeah, I think the number one most important thing when it comes to the resentment is twofold, is recognizing what it is that you need, and then how are you going to communicate that to your partner? Because resentment often comes from expectations that are not met, expectations that are not communicated. And so we fall into this pattern of, well, our partner should just know. They should know how to just pick up and go. They should be rested and ready to go. And we have this expectation of them, that they should also realize that we're tired. And rather than us actually saying, gosh, I'm tired, let me communicate that to my partner. When you come home tonight, I need to go straight to bed. I know you might be tired. I'm super tired. I will, I need to step out when you come home tonight, or whatever it may be. Like, just the ability to recognize what it is that you need and communicate that to your partner without you expecting them to just know and pick up the pieces.
Yeah. And I think it's this like resentment and anger of, you have no idea what you've missed. Like, you have no idea the meltdowns, the tantrums, the picky eating, or the schedule, the to-do list. Like, I am absolutely exhausted. Like, you have no idea what I've been doing, what I've been going through. And we forget that on the flip side of it is someone who is traveling to be able to support the family and to be able to, do what they need to do. It's not, oftentimes it's not, it's not like Lorenzo was like, yeah, this is absolutely what I want to do. I want to be traveling, all 3 these days. Like, bye. This is like peace and joy,
Right.
It was hard on him, and there were hardships for him too. And, I really think that our resentment and anger sometimes stems from the lack of what we're not getting, knowing what you need, requesting your needs, going to do something for you. I think we look at our opposite partner and think, well, you just got a night or two in a quiet hotel. Like, good for you. I didn't get that, right? And instead of feeling that resentment and anger towards our partner and then causing such a disconnect within our partnership, if we look internal of like, wow, I'm really struggling, or wow, I'm not doing well, or wow, I really feel burnt out, or wow, I really feel frustrated or exhausted. Wow, I think I really, really need a break. This is something I need. It's taking the anger and resentment that we're externally projecting onto our partnership and internally saying, okay, how can I support myself through this? And you're correct. It takes a lot of verbalization. It takes a lot of requesting our needs. Sometimes we don't even know what our needs are. So it's just easier to be pissed and angry at our partner. It literally is honestly sometimes easier.
Yeah.
Like that's so crazy to say, but like, I do believe that it's this easy go-to of just like, nope, I'm pissed. Like, it's easier to be pissed than it is to speak up and request our needs. Like, that is so wildly uncomfortable for so many of us. It's like, wait, I matter too. I think we want our partner to just see it and be like, oh, schnookums, oh, honey, oh, like man or woman, right? Like, we both just have the situation where our partners traveled and we're both married to men, or I was married to a man. But either way, I think it's just this difficulty of knowing our worth and requesting our needs and saying like, hey, I'm glad you're back, but like, I gotta go to bed now. Love you. Bye.
But I think even to build on that, but even deeper, is you were saying at one point, we may not even know our needs. And I think that's really what it is oftentimes, is we don't know.
Yes.
Yet we expect them, or we want them to somehow figure it out and then do it for us.
1,000%.
And the discomfort of taking ownership and saying, I'm responsible for how I feel. I'm responsible for finding what it is that my nervous system needs, what my body needs, whatever it may be. That's on me to figure out. That's on me to communicate to my partner, rather than my partner taking a look at me and saying, I bet you she needs a massage. Like, that's what we're expecting. And so that's where I think a lot of that resentment builds.
A nice warm bath with some Epsom salt.
Let me draw her a bath with some Epsom salt. Like that is
right.
This romanticized thought of a partner meeting our needs, when if we don't know what they are, we can't communicate them, then we are having incredibly unrealistic expectations of our partner.
But I think it's this difficulty that we fear, this lack of acceptance of our needs, or lack of approval of our needs, or lack of permission of our needs. And I think it's really important that we learn that it's not about permission. It's not about saying okay or asking or requesting. It's saying, no, you don't understand. This is a need. I have to go do this. And maybe it can't happen this instant because just got home and you need to hop on a call for work. Like totally. But we do need to find time for this because I need XYZ.
Yeah. Yeah. And oftentimes how we request that, I think has a lot to do with, discomfort in requesting it, or maybe we request it one time and it doesn't happen. So we're like, well, okay, well, that was it, or like this fear of asking again, or fear of holding that boundary and saying, no, I actually must have this in order for me to be able to continue in this cycle of you traveling, me being home, and this pattern that we're in. But the other part of it is also being willing and able to listen to their requests for their needs. Totally. And giving that space, because it's really easy to get caught up and say, well, I need this for me, and I need this for me, and I need this for me, and I need this for me. But your partner also needs things for themselves. And I know for me personally, it took me a lot of work, a lot of years to be able to give him that space to say, go, I'm good. Mm-hmm. I'm regulated. I have the tools I need to regulate myself. You can go freely without being stressed out as if I'm going to be okay when you're gone. And that was a huge growing experience doing this work, because there was that fear I'm sure he had of leaving, because was I going to be okay when he was gone? So, requesting my needs from him, giving him the space to take the time that he needed was really important for both of us.
And it can also be about reconnection too, right? Not just like, okay, you're exhausted from your work trip. I'm exhausted from the kids. It might be a need of, hey, when you come in the door, the kids are going to jump all over you. It's probably the afternoon. Who knows? Maybe it's morning time that you come back. But we've got to, finish out the day. But maybe the day that you get back, if it's a need of yours, like I just need to lay on the bed and like do a check-in with you and like see how you're doing. And I'll tell you about the kids, and we'll just lay together and just talk and reconnect. I think that could really be an incredibly healthy, I don't want to call it a reset because things just keep going, but it could be a very healthy transition tool, right? In terms of not just you get what you need and I get what I need, but when does the partnership come back in terms of connection? Because once that goes, it can be gone in the blink of an eye and you don't even realize that connection is gone and you feel that disconnect with your partner. And then sometimes it's extremely difficult to get it back.
Yeah.
Because you're in the thick of life with kids and work and, bills and to-dos and sports and extracurriculars and, teacher conferences. I mean, like I could keep going with the list, but it's never like nothing is ever too important to neglect the reconnection between the two of you. And if you're listening to this and you're like, well, we don't fucking have it already. Like, we're just kind of like, I don't know, roommates at this point. Like, that's not good. Like that's, and you're like, well, I'm happy when my partner leaves because I get some peace and quiet, like that, those are red flags to be like, okay, I think we need to do some work here. And I think we need to figure out what's the breakdown within our partnership and why are we feeling this way? Because then the distance and the travel can make it just that much worse,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think if you travel or your partner travels, it's of utmost importance to have that reconnection, however it may be, whether it is an evening together when the kids go to bed, if there are kids in the picture, maybe a date night where you can sneak out and do, a dinner, a movie, a massage, whatever it may be, but just trying to actually schedule that in to make it a regular part of the process of the travel process of he's gone, he comes back, but this night is our night.
Mm-hmm. And I also think it is okay if you enjoy that your partner travels, because I personally believe, now that I've lived with someone in a marriage and now that I live on my own with the kids, I think it's extreme. And now that I live 24/7 with the kids, I think it's extremely difficult to live with any human being 24/7, whether it's your children, your spouse, let's say it's your in-laws or your own parents. Like, I think it's extremely difficult to live under the same roof for the end, till the end of time, to live with the same people. I think it's really, really just, it takes effort. It's not the most simple, easy thing. And I mean, I feel like we have talked about this before, way back in the day, of like, it feels good. It's like, once the kids are in bed, I have the house all to myself. I have peace and quiet. I can do what I want to do. I get to watch the TV show that I want to watch, or I get to like have the bed all to myself. No one's snoring next to me. Like, there's just so many things. And it's almost right. Like, it's like, there's a little bit of like gluttonous, like a little bit of guilty pleasure, and that's okay too. If you feel that, that doesn't mean that you don't want your partner to never come back. It doesn't, like, you don't have to guilt yourself and be like, well, does that mean that I don't love my partner and I don't want my partner here? No, it just means that you get to actually take advantage of, the good and the bad. Like, you do have the rascals with you if you're the one at home and you're taking care of everything during the day. But that does mean maybe you get to put the kids to bed, order in something very special, and like have, I don't know, a glass of wine and watch your favorite show too. Like, you can make it something special for you too. And that is totally okay to bask in that alone time, if you will.
Yeah, 100%. Like, guilt-free. Taking advantage
Guilt-free.
of it. Yes.
Guilt-free. 1000%.
Well, there was one thing, and this may be more particular to my situation, but it took me a while to reframe his trips because he would always go work, but then he would catch up with one or two of his best buddies. And every week he was having dinner with them, with one of them. And I remember early on thinking, gosh, that's so unfair. I'd like to do that. And totally. Lorenzo would always say, please go, please go. He would force me to go take a trip at the beginning, of all his travels. But when I reframed that and thought to myself, wow, that is actually his time while he's working his tail off, that's also his time to reconnect, his time to regulate, his time to get with his best friends. And what a great experience that is for him to have weekly when they don't live next to him. So it was a matter of me reframing that and not thinking, he's leaving me. He's leaving me every week. No,
and traveling can get lonely,
yes.
Like traveling can get so lonely especially for, Jonathan was in and out at random times, but like Lorenzo, it was weekly and it was every single week. And it was the same days of like, he's literally living half the week at home, So for him to, I don't want to say build a community, because he clearly had his friends there. And so I totally understand how that could cause some like, well, he just gets to gallivant off and just like go have fun. And like, it's just like a party for him. We could totally have those thoughts.
Yeah.
But I love that. That must have taken a lot of like, okay, like this is his time. Like, I would assume that wasn't very easy, but at the same time, it is like, it's him having community when he's not with his nuclear community, his family.
And what's really funny is that even now that his travel is so infrequent, when he does say to me, I'm going to take this trip, my immediate panic still is there, which is so funny after all these years. And then I have to remind myself, you are okay. He's free to go. You've got this. But it's so ingrained in me for so many years of him doing it. That is my initial thought that I have to just process, sit through and be like, you're totally fine. So, so many years of travel But I've learned so much, and we have worked through so much, and it's nice to be on this side of things, to know that I've got it when he's gone. He's got it when I'm gone. And, you know, we can work through those transitions back, and that transition of one of us leaving, with a lot more awareness now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It definitely can morph and be a really healthy thing, but it does take some time. And I love that you recognize that trigger, because, you know, it's not, I have people message me all the time, and it does not offend me at all. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I've done this, you're more than welcome to still keep doing it. But people message me all the time and be like, my wife is out of town this week. Damn, like mad respect for solo parenting. My husband's out of town. Oh, solo parenting again. And I'm like, look, I get it. It is not an easy thing to do it alone. It just isn't, you know, especially if it's for an extended period of time. Brittany right now, I mean, Mike is back. Brittany's one of our other coaches on staff, but Mike has been gone for a while. And it was a lot for her. Like, it is a lot, especially if it's not natural. This took me years to get down to where I'm at. And I had help along the way too. Like, I had Lolo, you know, I could not do it alone. And I don't necessarily think that whatever you believe in universally or spiritually or religiously, I don't necessarily think that it would take two to tango to make another living being, if it meant that we were capable of solo parenting. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I think we'd be able to make that solo if that's what it was intended for, you know, is to do this on our own. And it's not, we're not supposed to do it on our own. I think the most important thing and takeaways from today is anything that Marie and I talked about. We want you to feel seen, heard, validated, and to know that you are absolutely not alone. And so many others have shared all these same feelings and opinions with us. And even if it's some of the resentment, even if it's some of the anger, even if it's some of the gluttonous, like, ooh, this is so nice to have my nice cozy bed, and like, you know, my big spoon or little spoon is not here, and like, I kind of like that I don't have to spoon at night, you know, like, whatever it is okay. And I think it's really, really normal. And most importantly, you're not alone.
Yeah, 100%.
Dynamics are not easy, and they all have their highs and lows, and it's okay to feel all that you're feeling. And yeah, thank you for coming on and doing this one with me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
And until next time, XOXO, Dr. B and Dr. Maria.